the exposure to trauma is part of the work, but the detrimental negative effects don't have to be. The exposure is there, but it doesn't have to harm us. And I think relational connection and compassion and support is really the antidote.
This is Rebel Therapist, a podcast for entrepreneurs who are trained as therapists and who want to level up their businesses, make a bigger impact, feel fulfilled, and be very well paid. I'm your host, Annie Schusler. Before I jump into this wonderful conversation, if you're thinking of creating a program beyond private practice, creating your signature program and making money in a new way, get on the wait list for Create Your Program. That is my small group program where I help you do that. It's going to be starting up in April, and there's going to be an early bird offer. So you want to get on the wait list now so that you don't miss it. So to get on the wait list, go to rebeltherapist.me/create. Okay, let's get into today's conversation. So do you want to start a membership community? Have you ever wanted to start a membership about a topic that you care deeply about? I'm really glad you're here to hear this conversation. My guest this week founded and runs a membership for trauma therapists called Trauma Therapist Network. And she has been very generous about letting us behind the scenes. So you're going to hear an honest breakdown of exactly how she did it, how the membership works, and what you need to have in place before you consider starting a membership community of your own. Meet Laura Reagan, LCSWC. She's an integrative trauma therapist, group practice owner, podcaster, consultant, and coach. In 2021, she founded Trauma Therapist Network, a membership community where trauma therapists can gather for support while building their therapy skills. She hosts Therapy Chat and Trauma Chat podcasts. Welcome, Laura. Thanks so much for being here.
Thank you so much for having me on. It's really special for me.
So I'm so excited to dive into your membership. So how did it start? I know there was kind of, as there are with so many really awesome things, there was like a curvy road to this happening. So how did it come to be?
Yeah, it was a curvy road. And it is, I'm sure, going to continue to be. But it's, it all started back in 2019. I mean, for years before 2019, when I would need to refer someone to a trauma therapist, and I guess I should say, because of my podcast, Therapy Chat, I get a lot of people who contact me and say, I loved your episode where you interviewed so-and-so, or I loved when you were talking about such and such. How can I find a therapist who practices like that? Or how can I find someone who practices the way you talk about trauma? And I would be like, well, I'll give you some names. I know a lot of therapists, but of course I don't know a lot of therapists in every single state who are trauma therapists who practice the same way that we talk about on Therapy Chat. That's a little more specific. So I would wish, that there was a way to find a trauma therapist that gave, like a therapist directory that gave specifics on what is the person's training, what's their perspective. Are they doing relational trauma? Are they doing combat trauma? Are they doing childhood trauma? Are they doing single incident trauma from a car accident? Are they using EMDR? Are they using somatic therapies? Are they using art therapy, or do they have an attachment lens? It's not a given that it would be just a, one size fits all trauma therapy approach. So I think probably in the idea of having like a side gig for other ways of earning income, I started thinking, well, I haven't seen a directory like this. I guess I could try to create it. I mean, I certainly know what I'm looking for. I know what I want it to be like, but I have no idea how to make it. So I talked to the one person I know who is like a computer expert, and that's Kat Love. But anybody who knows anything about computers knows that, of course, there's a lot of different people might be good at designing websites. They might be good at programming. They might be good at, software development. It's all different stuff. So Kat was like, that's not something that I know how to do or specialize in, but I can recommend somebody who, this is kind of what you're going to need if you want it to be really functional. Because I didn't want it to be just something that looked like a directory but didn't really work. That's what I was afraid would happen. And then I guess it's like, this is kind of a guiding thing for me anyway. I'm always afraid of what I don't understand, that something will go wrong that I won't know what it is, so I can't fix it myself. So Kat gave me some names, and I finally reached out in 2020 to get started with a website and found two great people who, I want to say the name of their company and I cannot remember it right now. But I found a great company to work with. One of the people was a designer and one's a developer, and they did a beautiful job of making a wonderful site for me. And then I started thinking, well, this is kind of tricky because the people who are going to be listed in the website are therapists. But what is going to draw people to this website to find a therapist? How are they going to know it exists? Because, it's brand new and there are other directories that are bigger and more established and lots of Google juice in them. So I was like, okay, so the problem with people who are looking for therapy for trauma is that they often don't know they have trauma. So it needs to kind of educate people about trauma too. So the idea became draw people to the website to learn about trauma. And then once they learn about it and they go, oh, that's me, then there's a directory right there where they can search for a therapist near them. So that was the original idea. And I released it in August of 2021. Yeah.
Okay. How much did it cost to set up that directory website? Do you remember, like, ballpark?
Oh, yeah. I know exactly how much it costs. It costs a lot.
I bet.
It was a big investment. Yeah. I'll say it was in the 5 figures, but some people have told me that, I might have been able to have it done for less, but I wasn't in a position to do a lot of hunting. I was just trying to not drag out the process of, I don't live in Silicon Valley. I don't know. All my neighbors aren't programmers,
Mm-hmm.
So
Oh, that seems like it would be 5 figures. There's no way to get, I feel like the best way to get people telling you could have done it for less is to go ahead and do it in the first place. And then you get to hear
that's
you should have
true.
done it for less.
That's true. Well, why didn't you ask me? I could have put you in touch with someone, but it's like, well, you never really know what's going to go into it. And it works really well. So that's, I think it's really beautiful and works well. And they were able to take the vision that I had in my head that I didn't know what it was actually going to look like. So that's not easy. I'm like, I want something that feels like nice and warm and compassionate. And they're like, and I mean, it does. That's a gift. But yeah, it was a big investment. And I honestly, it was a big leap of faith. But I told myself, I think when the pandemic hit, I said, I am not going to sit on my laurels here. I'm not going to assume that everything that I've worked for with my practice is going to be what's going to keep me going for the rest of my life when pandemics can come out of the blue and change everything. So I suddenly felt like I needed like a backup plan.
Okay, so then how did that go? August 2021, what happened?
So I was telling anybody who would listen about it, and all my therapist friends and everybody that said it was a great idea. And I originally set it up to be $33 a month for a therapist listing. And, it's a beautiful listing where you can put all the podcasts that you've been on, all the blog posts you've ever written, link to all these different things. And I had a lot of people who were interested, but not that many people really joined. And I wasn't really thinking of it as a, quote, membership then, although it was like a subscription service, so it's similar. But I had about 20 people, and I was like, well, this is not that many people, and this is a national directory listing. I mean, if there's 20 people and say 8 of them are in Maryland, that doesn't leave that many options for the potential client who's looking for services. So I just started to realize like a lot of therapists are like, I don't need this. I'm full. In fact, I don't need more clients at all.
And I'm thinking like these are therapists. Well, there's the timing of the demand for therapists. And then these are therapists who are particularly skilled. So, okay, that's interesting. So their practices are full and so they don't need to be on a directory to get more clients. Okay, that makes sense. So then what happened?
So the other piece that I had built into it was, and it was sort of like just like a, see what happens if people will respond to this. The other piece was like a community meeting every 3 months. So it was like a 2-hour call that everybody could come to and a way to connect. And, it was called Trauma Therapist Network. And I was like, that's the network. You get to know some people and then you can trust them and make good referrals. And so we started having those meetings and that was where people were really lit up. I mean, everyone was like, this is great. I love learning about everything. This is so fun. And I was like, oh, wow. Community is what everybody needs here, not a directory listing. That's not the big draw for them. I mean, so I said, let me see what happens if I make it into a membership community to support therapists. And I'll lead the meetings and it'll be a meeting once a week, 4 weeks out of the month.
So you really pivoted, like you saw what people actually wanted and it was lighting them up. At this point where there's still only 20 members. Okay, so of those 20, do you remember about how many showed up for like the first meetings that you had?
It was probably like 15.
Whoa.
Yeah.
That's high. Okay, that's really cool. Okay, so then you pivoted really fast to this is what they actually are finding value in. And was it lighting you up too? Like, were you enjoying those meetings?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, so then that makes it really clear. And then you went from once every 3 months to once a week.
Yeah.
How did you decide to do that frequency?
I was thinking about some other things that I've been part of, like, different mastermind groups that are usually more built around coaching for business growth and stuff. The ones that were monthly were good in one way, but the ones that were weekly felt more close-knit. And I guess I was thinking I want it to really be a value for people. So the quarterly calls were open-ended and the once a week calls were themed. So, or are themed. So it's the first week of the month is focused on self-care. And we usually have some kind of experiential self-care practice that I or another member or sometimes a guest will lead. And so it's not just like, what's your favorite book on self-care? It's like, here's a practice that I've used, which is fun because you're just doing it together and you connect just because you're getting into that space together.
Yeah. Okay. So there's self-care. And then what are the other themes?
And then we have case consultation. So that's just an hour of bring your clinical place where you're stuck and we discuss it. And we usually have time for 2. And sometimes people sign up ahead of time and other times they just show up and say, well, I have a thing anybody ever dealt with like somebody, reacting like this when this happens or something. And people are like, oh, if that happened, I would use this technique or I would try that. And, here's how I would conceptualize that. And so it's like a brain trust of experienced, skilled, creative therapists with a diverse background of, training methods and styles and populations they work with. But the beautiful thing I think too about it is that therapists are just, therapists are like kind people and they want to help. So everyone's really compassionate towards each other. And, someone will have their camera off and someone else has theirs on. And one person's sharing, something that they're dealing with. And another person's like, I needed to hear this so much today. Thank you. It's really, I think the isolation has been what has really been getting people down. And the connection that they find in the community is what brings them back.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So you've got self-care, case consult, and then what are the other 2?
And our third week is Q&A. And basically that'll either be a workshop or just an open-ended bring whatever. Sometimes people are like, well, can I do another case? And, yep, sure. And other times it's, who knows how to score the DES, or, like just all different things like that. How do you decide between CPTSD and PTSD when you're diagnosing? And something happened with a client that I've never seen before, or I felt something that I've never felt before. And, has anybody ever experienced that? So it's like, it's how you would talk with other therapists. But a lot of times for me, when I would be in a consult group with other therapists who weren't trauma focused, I would feel so frustrated because I would say, okay, this situation has come up in an interaction with a client and I'm not sure how to handle it. And then, and I'd say like, this person's got a complex trauma history, and then they were emotionally neglected and physically abused in childhood. And someone, I'm in a consult group with people who aren't trauma focused, and someone will say, oh, that person sounds like bipolar is what's going on for that person. It's like, no, it's not bipolar. You're totally missing the point. And then I feel like I have to educate them about trauma. And, it's like there's room for different perspectives, and it's always good to learn from other disciplines and other ways that people are trained. But I think trauma is so often overlooked that, the default tends to be, oh, well, that sounds like ADHD. That sounds like bipolar. Are you sure that person doesn't have schizophrenia? And, it's like, no.
So this is a place where people kind of don't have to do that work. They get to just get to the helpful stuff. Okay. And then the final one is training, right? And how does that one work?
So usually I lead the training, and it's usually an hour. Sometimes it's longer, an hour and a half. And sometimes we have a guest, as we do this month. In fact, we have a special guest at the end of this month whose name is Annie Schusler, who's going to be so awesome. But we have 2 guests this month. So yeah, we're actually going to have 2 trainings this month, and you are delivering one of them, which I'm so excited about.
I'm so excited. And that will be in the past by the time this airs, strangely. Yeah.
So this is future me telling past us.
Yeah.
Or something. We're in the Matrix now. That's what that is.
Totally. Okay, so you really have a robust community now where you're offering a lot, and you really pivoted to people were feeling isolated. They were also feeling like, I want to talk to trauma therapists who are actually trauma therapists, because it's so easy to just check that box off on the other directories. You're adding that value of no, here's what you're going to be with people who are really specializing and updating their work about this, dedicated to this. So then you started out, you had 20 people, you made this pivot to a different offer.
Yeah.
And then you did a second launch. And how did that one go?
Yeah. So that was when things really turned. And I will say that I used a membership marketing strategy from Stu McLaren. And he talks about he calls it a founding member launch, where you invite people to join at a low price and be your founding members. And they're the ones who build the foundation of your program. And because they're joining at a low price, they're motivated to stay in the membership, because as it evolves, they'll get more and more value and their price will never go up. So I did that in January. And
January 2022.
2020, I am confusing myself because this has been out for a year in August. So it must have been, 2022. Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I'm like, did I start this in 2020 or 2021? Oh boy. Yeah, it was 2021. And then January 2022 is when we did the founding member launch. So that was the second launch. And from that, I think 88 people signed up or something. So then we had over 100. In somewhere along the line, a few of the first people left, because you can cancel at any time. But the people who joined as founding members for only $33, they got all that content. and they will continue to for as long as they stay members, it's my way of thanking them for, to go from 20 people in a directory to over 100 is quite a big difference when people look at a directory and see 100 people, and it's still not very many, but it's way more. And, there's a lot more representation across the United States because of that. So, and the idea with the founding member launch is that people get this amazing value, but they're also trusting you to deliver what you say you're going to deliver. They don't know what it's going to be. They're joining before. I said, if you join now, starting in March, you'll get all this. So it was kind of like, in a way, for me as a business strategy, I had to consider, before I put all this out and start saying, this is what's included, I need to be sure that anybody wants this and that it's going to be feasible to do this financially with my time, to spend my time creating this membership, marketing it, and creating all the content for it. So they took a leap of faith and I took a leap of faith, and everybody is really happy together. It sounds corny to say everybody's happy together, but it's like people, when they join, are like, yes, this is just what I was looking for. And it's kind of weird because it's hard to tell people what it's going to be like until they're in it, because it's not really something that is out there.
We're going to get right back to the conversation. If you're a therapist or healer who wants a more lucrative business model where you get to do what you love, but you don't have to be running session after session after session and still barely making enough money, I have an offer for you. I want to invite you to check out my 8-week program called Create Your Program. You're going to learn how to design and launch your own pilot program. If you don't know what that means, don't worry about it. I'm going to teach you all about how to do it. Head over to rebeltherapist.me/create to learn more. All right, let's get back to the episode. It also, once you get up to 100 people, you have that critical mass of people interacting with each other. Do you have a platform where they can interact with each other?
I don't. Yeah, that's something that I might add, but I didn't want a Facebook group because, I want to stay away from Facebook. I mean, I'm there, but I want to spend as little time there as possible because I usually feel bad once I'm there. And then there was we could have a community on another site, but then there's one site where their listing is, and there's one membership area where their content is that they log in to get. And then there's another place they have to go log in to do the, off-site group type thing, the special private group. So I would like people to be able to interact together in between our sessions in a place somewhere, but I don't know right now that if it's in a separate place like Mighty Networks, that I would have it would be hard for me to bring myself there and be making stuff happen over there too. So I'm afraid I wouldn't be able to follow through with what would be expected if it were that way. And there's no way that I've found yet to do a interactive space within the membership software that I'm using, although there might be some kind of a add-on that I don't know about. But I use Kartra, and it works well for hosting the content.
Maybe there are advantages, especially for trauma therapists, to not having that constant interaction. So that's interesting. But you have critical mass for calls, which matters too, to have enough people showing up.
Yeah. And I think it's weekly, there's a core group of people who come every time. And then there's a rotating group of people who come much of the time. So it's a lot of, for one, I'm familiar with all of the people. And for me, this is so small and specific to me, but I know how they work. So I know I can refer to them knowing how they work, not just this person looks like they say they do what, I think is the best thing that they should do, And it's not all about having my approval per se, but just when someone says, I'm looking for someone who does this or who feels like this, if I know them because I've listen to them talk about their work and I see how they practice and I know what they know and what they're like drawing from in their work, then I feel really comfortable. Yeah, this person seems like they will really be able to be just what you're looking for, you know? Or I could even ask them for a recommendation of someone else to refer someone to, you know? And so there's like a sense of trust because we share together but I think there's probably something intangible that happens there that I'm not really able to clearly articulate.
Well, last time we talked, I kept like throwing these like sentences at you where I was like, there's all this value in this offer that like, I'm not sure if you're articulating it, but like just so much about it's really hard to be a therapist. It's really hard to be a trauma therapist. And like, if people are feeling alone in it, or sometimes even feeling like, do I know what I'm doing? Like, that's normal. Like, that's because you can't do this alone. So, yeah.
Yeah, it's like something about that trauma work is relational, and to metabolize trauma work needs to be done relationally too. So not just to heal from trauma, our own trauma, it has to be relational, but also to let it move through you because it's like they say, there's a quote that I heard from Laura Vandernoot Lipsky's book, Trauma Stewardship, that I'm not going to get the quote completely right. And I don't remember who said it, but it's something to the effect of that to think that you can sit with people and witness their pain and suffering and hear about the horrible things that have happened to them day in and day out and not be affected by it is like thinking that you can walk through the ocean without getting wet. You just can't.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. So I hope you have all that in your marketing stuff.
I need to put that quote in there because that really resonates for me when I hear it. And it's like, it's not a matter of being the person who the trauma work doesn't impact. That won't be possible. It's like, if you're a surgeon, you will be cutting people open. It's just part of the work. And that's what, it is with us, that the exposure to trauma is part of the work, but the detrimental negative effects don't have to be part of it. I think that part, the exposure is there, but it doesn't have to harm us. And I think relational connection and compassion and support is really the antidote.
Mm-hmm. So now, can people get in at any time, or do you go with kind of a cohort, not cohort, but like a launch model?
I've been going with a launch model, although today I've actually been thinking, that even though I'm launching, I'm kind of planning on next year launching like 4 times next year, and I'll raise the price in 2023. But I'd like to, when I'm doing something like this, being on a podcast like this, where people might hear it and be interested, I'd like for them to be able to just go ahead and sign up when they hear about it, So in a way, it's like the link might be out there and open, but I'm not going to be marketing it year round. I just want to have a few contained launches because at some point it'll be too big, but I mean, we're not near there yet, because we can do like regional things. And I feel I've like a lot of exciting thoughts about how we can build it to be more, not bigger, but deeper. You know what I mean?
I wonder if this is getting geeky, but like if you even wanted to have kind of like a hidden way in that people can get, not necessarily if they just land on your website, but if they have a particular link that they got from a podcast or from a talk that you gave, they get like kind of behind the velvet ropes.
Exactly. With a discount.
Oh, yeah. Okay, so you're raising it in 2023, as we all need to do, because like as we're recording this in November, like inflation, hello. What is people are going to be listening to this, I think, in February. Like, how much are you raising the price? What is the price now as we're recording it in November? Do you have?
Yes, right now it's $97 a month. And I don't know exactly how much it's going to go up to, but I think it will be around $127. We'll see.
So it's like 4 sessions a month with you, with the community, trainings, self-care, And if somebody is a trauma therapist, like that's probably, half a session financially. So it seems like a really good idea.
I want people to feel like it's a great value because I certainly charge more than that for one-on-one consultation. But, even though I am full of brilliant ideas, the hive mind and the just variety of perspectives that people have, it's, because I might think I know what I would do, but it might not really be what you would do. And there's such a different, just based on what people are trained in and how their personalities are. There's so many different ways that people can do things. Some people are, very direct or use a lot of humor, and other people are very somatically oriented or energy work and, expressive arts. It's everything. Some people might say, some kind of like Buddhist perspective or, we talk about like Tara Brach's work and Pema Chodron and self-compassion and all of that stuff. So I don't know. I could go on all day because I do get really pumped up talking about it.
So what was your audience, like your audience for your podcast has about how many, Therapy Chat has about how many listeners, do you think?
I'd say it's about like 40,000.
Damn. Okay. And
I know. Sounds weird to say that, but
really great.
That's what the numbers seem to show.
Yeah. And do you have a sense of what percentage of them are therapists at all?
Yeah, I always say it's about 2/3 therapists. And that's my estimate based on people, contacting me. Most of the people who listen are therapists. Most of the people who contact me and say they listen are therapists. And then there's, a lot of people who are other type of healers or, just doing their own personal growth work.
And do you also have an email list?
Yeah, but it doesn't have 40,000 people on it. I wish it did.
About how big is your email list?
About, say, 2,600 people.
That's like a similar size to mine. Where do all of the participants come from? Do most of them come from the podcast? Do they come from the email list? Like, do you know, as people are coming in, do they tell you how they heard about it?
I don't ask them. I should. I don't ask them that. But anecdotally, I think they mostly come from the podcast.
I do think it's a great idea to ask because then, like, especially if you have people filling anything out in the onboarding process anyway, I feel like that data becomes gold. But yeah, that makes sense that people came in from the podcast. And then are you, like, how much are you talking about? And like, I don't know why I'm trying to avoid the word selling. How often are you selling the membership on the podcast?
Not that much, which is kind of not the best because that's where I have the biggest following. So why am I not? And I think it's just like I'm too shy about it, which is, or I think, oh, please, no one wants to hear about what you're doing. And, but then when people are joining, they're like, I can't believe I'm here with you. Like, I heard about this. And I'm like, oh, thanks. But I was talking with someone today, and it was Ariana, who we were talking about earlier. She said, Ariana Lloyd, she said, why don't you do like a mid-roll on your podcast? And I was like, oh, duh. Why? Like, yes, good idea. But I don't know. There's something about that hiding urge, It's like, maybe it's so precious I'm afraid to share it and have somebody say it's not precious or something. I don't know.
Yeah, because I'm just thinking like, this is such a successful community already. Yeah, I agree with Ariana. And maybe if like, so like with my mid-roll, I record it every time. So like it sounds a little different every time, but I really don't need to. It's almost exactly the same every time. So yeah, like that would be interesting if you even just recorded it one time when you were feeling like amped up and in love with the membership and like in that energy. And then you could just drop it in. It's a great idea.
Oh, I feel like you can relate to that because when you said that, it's like every Wednesday is that's when I do any reels or anything because that's the day that we have our meetings and I feel amazing after our meetings. And I go, yeah, I'm going to record these reels. And the rest of the time I'm like, what would I say? Ugh, what am I going to do about my hair? Oh, and I just feel like so self-conscious. So yeah, that's a good piece of advice because I feel so lit up after our meetings. And I feel just like, it's like I feel reconnected with myself too. So I think that's what it's doing for everybody. It's doing it for me too.
So you gave up your therapy practice, not your therapy practice. You gave up seeing individual therapy clients in the course of all of this, and you're still running your group practice. So you're still, I'm imagining you still have a lot on your plate.
Yeah.
What kind of team support do you have for the community? Like besides you, what's happening behind the scenes?
Well, that's a great question. In fact, there's absolutely no way I could be doing the community without the support of Andrew, my son.
Nice.
And yeah, he works for me full time. And that was, again, big leap of faith. I mean, I have people working for my practice who I don't pay, 40 hours a week, but I pay him 40 hours a week and they are generating revenue. The clinicians that work under me are generating revenue, but he's supporting keeping it going. I wouldn't be able to do all the operations of it without his help because, he's helped me automate a lot of things and much of it runs like in a really smooth rhythm because he's there. If he weren't, I wouldn't have been able, it would not be what it is at all. There's no way I'd be able to put in the time. And he's there on every call to help with like tech glitches and, just letting people in, those kinds of things are just, they're small, but they can really rattle you or throw you off when you're trying to greet everyone and there's other people waiting and,
Yeah, absolutely. And so he's kind of like running everything behind the scenes so that you can still be running your group practice and be serving people in the community, but not like doing all the behind the scenes stuff. So then, like, how many hours do you think you're spending in and on the community every week?
Well, let's see. He does almost all the customer service. He does, all the tech support and a lot of the, like we have like a Monday reminder for the call and then a Wednesday reminder. And then we have a Friday, here's the recording, all of that. He, with my oversight, he puts that together. But I do the meetings. So that's 4 hours a month. I have to plan them. I create the training that we're going to have. All the marketing pretty much comes from me because it's like my thoughts, I can't really. So he doesn't do that. I probably put in, I don't know, maybe 5 to 10 hours a week, depending on if it's like launching or just ongoing.
Nice. I think that's beautiful. And like, I think people are getting a couple takeaways here to consider is like, you have a really big audience. So you've got like 40,000, or maybe it's like 25,000 therapists listening, but you've got a big audience of your people and you have a team. And like, that's some of what it takes to really make something like this work. But I say that because this is probably not the thing for people to start with, like if they don't have an audience yet, if they don't have resources for a team yet, this would not be like step one. This is like, it takes resources that you've built up over time.
Yeah, I would say for me, this project is really kind of like not an end point, but it's like a culmination of what I've been building with Therapy Chat for 7 years now. And even though I have that size of audience, it's not like people are knocking the door down to come and work with me. That's a lot of people who really like something I'm putting out there, but I have not got it all figured out about how to really create offerings that they want and, serve them in that way. But this feels like, it's like I started this in multiple different iterations too. I started these online consult groups first about 2016. And when I was doing that, people were like, what? And I was saying vicarious trauma support. And people were like, thanks, So it's like if you keep trying to do the same thing in enough different ways, eventually the thing will kind of come to the surface that's the right match. And for me, maybe there's probably a lot of needing to get out of my own way. But now with the website, the 2 podcasts both live on the website. That gives the opportunity to have like affiliate links and things like that. And there's people going to the website. So that's a driver for that type of revenue too. So there's a way to make income from it that isn't just the income from the membership. But it's putting a lot of pieces in place. So I had to stop seeing clients to be able to have the mental space and emotional space to be creative with this.
Yes. And to hold all these therapists too. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Because I really have to show up like, well, I can't just like phone it in, and I don't want to.
Yeah.
But it's also like, it nourishes me, so I have more to give too, kind of a little unintended consequence.
So what's one dream that you have for the community or for your business in 2023?
Okay, I'll call it a dream because it was something I wanted to do in 2020, and we all know 2020 didn't turn out as planned for anyone. But I want to have gatherings. I want to have like, what I was going to do in 2020 was have little like day-long conferences kind of around the country that could be like, a therapy chat meetup and have 2 or 3 prior guests give a training or some kind of talk. So it's like, being able to be there in person with these guests that you've heard and other listeners and me and, like people who are curious about the same things being together in one place and being able to totally nerd out on it.
Ooh, that'd be amazing. Yeah. So maybe that'll happen in 2023.
Yeah, maybe 2023 will be the year.
Yeah.
I hope so.
Thank you so much for this, Laura. This was amazing.
Well, thank you. Great questions. And you make me feel inspired just sort of observing your brain working.
Oh, thank you. I forgot to do it this time. I was just talking to my spouse about how I need to give people a warning who are going to be a guest that I may give unsolicited advice and that's kind of like part of what the show is. But I was realizing it should come with a warning label. But you're kind of used to it.
That's right. Last time we talked, you're like, is it okay if I geek out? I'm like, please, writing furiously everything you said. So when you said that this time, I'm like, good, bring it. Jot some notes. Little free coaching for me.
Thank you so much. Appreciate you. Learn all about Trauma Therapist Network by going to traumatherapistnetwork.com. I want to thank Cosmo Palms for editing this podcast. If you found this episode supportive, please share it with your favorite therapist or healer. That is absolutely how we reach more people. And thank you so much for listening. I'll see you next time.